Okay. Hi, Holly. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on this show. I appreciate it. So, you've got a book out called Night of Twin Moons, and this is part of a series of books.
Yes, Night of the Twin Moons is the fourth in the series, although it's sort of starting off its own little spin-off.
Okay. You want to explain that a little bit?
Sure. The first three books in this series are called My Twin Moons Saga, and those which would be Daughter of the Twin Moons, Daughter of the Deep Wood, and Daughter of the Dark Moon, um, were finished, a few years ago. After a bit of a hiatus, I started working on another book that takes place in the same world, but we're starting off with different characters.
Also, according to your bio, it says you hate cliffhangers, so that each
I
book
do.
is a standalone. Why do you hate cliffhangers?
They always feel like a money grab to me,
Yeah,
and
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like feeling duped. So I don't do that to my readers.
All right, fair enough. I do believe you're correct. I think it is sort of an advertising gimmick. They make you come back, right? They've done that for years with television. It's
Absolutely.
soap operas and things. Right. Okay.
Yeah, I remember JR.
Yeah. Well,
The
JR and
update.
even General Hospital, and I mean, all of those soap operas
Oh yeah,
did that. I was just going to ask you about publishing. It says that you own and operate Hen House Publishing.
I do.
Let me ask you something about publishing generally, because we do have a lot of authors on here, a lot of first time authors.
Hmm.
There's different sort of publishing routes that people can go these days. What is the difference between owning a publishing company and publishing your own work and being a self published author?
In my case, there's no difference, but I do help other authors through the publishing journey. What I offer is assisted publishing. If they need someone to write, I ghostwrite for them. If they need an editor, I edit for them. I proofread. I do book formatting. This all stems from over 30 years of corporate work doing that for my employers. So I figured I'd combine it all and assist authors in their publishing journey. The thing that separates me from most publishers, or especially vanity publishers, is that I do not claim the copyright and I do not have any claim toward the royalties.
Okay, so you're what might be referred to as a hybrid publisher.
Yeah, you could call me a hybrid publisher. I prefer the term assisted.
Assisted, okay. Because when I've had discussions with others on this show about publishing, there usually is three categories. There's traditional, which are the big five New York publishing houses.
Right.
There is hybrid or assisted, and then there is self. Okay, self meaning you do everything yourself.
Right.
Hybrid means you kind of offer a la carte services, right? Like if I came to you and
Uh,
said, "Well, I need this," you can do that, right?
right. And I do offer, the services a la carte. I also offer packages, for those who just kind of want, hey, let's just do this all in one big, lump, help me make the cake.
Right, but then you don't keep anything. They just pay you for your services, and
Correct.
you're done basically. Yeah.
Correct.
Do you have a lot of authors?
I have a good few, I would say. There's one of my clients is Russ Town, and I do editing for him. And he is a children's author. I have another client, Dominic Brogsdale, who writes urban fiction. Those are two of my really steady clients.
What would you think is the determining factor for people when considering publishing? If you're a new author, you've got a brand new book, and you say, "Gee, which way should I go?" What do you think some of the determining criteria should be for their decision?
I think a new author who doesn't know whether to submit to traditional publishers or to self-publish should ask himself or herself if he or she is ready to assume and be responsible for all the tasks that a publisher does. Because when you self-publish, that's what you're doing. You're assuming all that responsibility. And a traditional publisher hires professional editors, professional designers, professional cover artists. They have people who do that. And for most authors don't have that combined experience. And I can tell, from my own experience, because, I am an editor and I am an author, that when I have my own manuscript ready to go, I don't edit it myself. I send it out to another editor because, editing your own work's just a bad idea.
Well, I would agree with you on that. Because you never catch your own mistakes. You can go over the same line probably 5 or 6 times and just never catch it,
And that's true. You do. You're as an author, you're too close to your own work.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about your book, Night of the Twin Moons. First of all, what genre does this fall under?
The overarching genre would be romance. But if you're looking at subgenres, we're talking fantasy romance.
Okay, you want to explain what that is for people that don't know?
Okay. Fantasy, if you don't know fantasy, think Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. Okay, we're talking another realm, different species of humanoid people or whatever, magic. And so, yeah, things like that. Fantasy romance very frequently takes place in a medieval-esque setting. So, I hit all those tropes.
Let me ask you something about tropes, because I've had that come up on other shows as well. What does romance have to include in order for it to be called a romance?
Romance must include either happily ever after or happily for now ending. Everything else is up in the air.
Okay, and the level of eroticism is up to you?
Yeah, romance has no bearing on whether the content even has explicit passages in it or the degree of explicit content. That has no bearing on whether it's a romance.
Are there warning labels on books like there are on record albums for explicit content?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
You will find what's been really popular recently, and by recently I mean in the last several years, has been what they call dark romance, which often carries what they trigger warnings, abduction, sometimes BDSM, other things, just in general, cruelty, just a lot of what they call dub-con and non-con, which would be dubious consent or non-consensual sex. And, these all find a place in romance. They all have their fans. Those books oftentimes, which have that sort of content, will then warn readers who might be upset or offended by that content.
Do mainstream publishers handle that kind of material?
They do.
They do, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't the line between, because if you look at motion pictures, for example, they can get to a certain point, but once they're deemed pornographic, it goes into a different sort of whole corporation.
Right. Yeah, but I have my own little, I guess, rating system. Romance is a character-driven story that focuses on the romantic relationship between the protagonists. It may or may not have explicit content. Erotica is basically a thin plot about the relationship development with a main focus on the sexual content.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not necessarily either or, it's a matter of degree.
Orson Welles once said that you can make a pornographic masterpiece, but you cannot make a masterpiece that is pornographic. He said because it becomes antipathetic to the story.
I would agree with that. It's like someone said, all right, everyone knows porn, but no one can define it, right?
You're right. Yeah. We've got just a couple minutes left. Can you give us about a 1-minute synopsis of your book series, sort of the whole series, a very general kind of synopsis?
Okay. The series takes place in a fictional realm with a race basically called what I call the Fae, which is another fairly common trope. And our heroes tend to be many centuries or thousands of years old, but they're immortal, so it really doesn't matter. And our heroines tend to be females whom they oftentimes rescue from dire straits and feel an immediate relationship with. These are basically love at first sight type of stories.
Oh, okay. All right.
With the trappings of fantasy around them.
How many books do you anticipate are going to be in this series?
I'm thinking probably a couple more.
What's the determination for when you cut it off? When you run out of ideas?
When I get bored with it.
When you get bored with it? Okay. Well, that's good. All right. Well, Holly, I think on that, we're going to have to wind this down. Thanks so much for coming on. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes, for my books, the website is hollybargobooks.com. Yeah, and for, writing, ghostwriting, editing, and book design, it's henhousepublishing.com.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again. It was nice meeting you. Best of luck with your publishing and your writing and everything else you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.